Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I get together and go over the events in the world of Scientology as reported on Tony's Substack. We skipped last week, but we're going to go over why and all of that. And we've got 2 weeks of stuff to cover. So Tony, welcome back.
Well, we skipped a week because we actually hung out together last weekend. That was fun.
We had a lot of fun last weekend. It was a great time. We'll tell you a little bit about it, but we're going to start with ads in the London Underground in the UK. What is the story on this?
Yeah, they were delayed a little bit, but Alex pulled it off. Just a brilliant, brilliant coup by the Aftermath Foundation and Alex Barnes Ross. Scientology, I don't know, about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, said that they were going to be making a big push in advertising around, they had a new Super Bowl ad and that kind of thing. And they put up billboards in Ireland and they put ads on the walls in the Tube in London, particularly in one station, the one that's closest to the org. Right. And they were the "I'm a Scientologist" ads. Are you curious? Contact this number or whatever. And they were controversial. I mean, they did get press there in London, like, well, Scientology's a very controversial organization. They're trying to fool people. Well, Alex plotted and put together some ads that look very similar, except they say I'm an ex-Scientologist instead of I'm a Scientologist, with 3 different ones. One with Claire Headley's face, one with Mike Rinder's, and one with Alex himself, similar to the billboards that they put up in LA. And they not only put them up in that same London Underground station, but in the same spots. They replaced the Scientology ads with these ads from the Aftermath Foundation, which I think is just, what beautiful turnabout. Fair play, right? So big coup for Alex. He's always thinking. And see, this is why I think, and Scientology is really upset about the stuff he's been doing. I think what makes Alex so effective is he works in marketing. He understands how to get a message across. He's really clever with that kind of thing. So, the fact that he was very much a part of the effort to put up 20 billboards in Los Angeles, and now put up these 3 ads in the London Underground, just brilliant. I just think it's Scientology really appears to be on its back foot in the UK right now, and they're not sure what to do about this guy. So I think that's just a wonderful situation.
I agree completely. Thorn in the side, and that is well, it's activism, baby. I mean, and he's doing it, and he keeps bringing it. This has been going on for a couple of years now. So kudos to Alex on that work, on that front. Now there is a thing we have been discussing for years, and this is the religious worker visas.
Oh yeah.
Right. And there was an article this week where you had some numbers and figures that were kind of interesting.
Yeah, we had Jeff Jacobson, I think, was the first one who brought this up years and years ago. He noticed that there were a lot of foreign people in Sea Org positions at places like the Flag Land Base. And he guessed that there was he heard that there was some issue with visas going on, and that Scientology was taking advantage of what's called the R1 visa, which allows churches in the U.S. to bring over foreign workers to do religious work. And Jeff Jacobson raised that question, is Scientology abusing that process? Well, a researcher named R.M. Siebert, she really took the next step and decided, let's find out how big this situation is. And I don't know, 10 years ago or something, 9 years ago, she put in a request, and the law had changed enough so that she was able to at least get some numbers. You obviously can't get names of individual people who are here on visas. That's private information. But, she was asking, look, of all the religious organizations in the United States asking for these visas, how many of those requests come from the Church of Scientology? And she found that 15% of this country's requests for this type of visa come only from the Church of Scientology. Like, wow. The smallest church of them all is asking for the most foreign workers. So that was real eye-opening. Well, it's been, 9 or 10 years since she made that request. So another researcher we work with, he goes by the name Cannonball. He decided, let's get some updated numbers and see how it is. Well, his set of data has the pandemic in it. So you have to keep that in mind because it kind of changed things for everybody. And overall, the numbers are down, not just for Scientology, but for everybody, which is probably as a result of the pandemic. But even so, in the years 2019 to 2023, that's the data set he got, Scientology still accounts for 10% of all the R1 visas applied in this country. So the same
Wow.
situation, so it's the same situation is in place that this one small organization is asking for far more foreign workers than any other church in the country. So, and why? And my favorite thing was he also broke it down by country. And he found some really startling information. My favorite piece of information that he found was that 6 workers were requested and got visas so they could work at the Hollywood Celebrity Center, and they came from Pakistan, where Scientology does not have any orgs or missions. So how could they be
Pakistan.
Scientology religious workers? See, the idea is okay, the local Catholic Church needs an Italian priest to come over for whatever reason, give him a visa because he's got those special skills or whatever. How does Scientology justify bringing in people from Pakistan to do religious work? Because the truth is they're not. They're going there to be janitors. Scientology abuses this system. They're bringing in people to become indentured servants in the Sea Org, and once again, Cannonball found that the biggest requester in Scientology is the Flag Land Base, and of all the countries, the biggest country that they're asking for is Russia. So once
Yeah.
again, what's really going on is Scientology is bringing Russians over to run the Flag Land Base because they can't convince enough Americans to sign billion-year contracts. It's a complete abuse of this visa system. And this is what I always get this question: if Scientology is breaking law, why doesn't law enforcement do something? You have to understand it's not just that the law is being broken or that rules are being broken, but that law enforcement has to care and do something about it, and they don't. So I don't know
Yeah.
that Scientology's. I mean, and the obviously the environment with visas and immigration has changed very recently, but I still don't see them going after religious visas anytime soon. But thank you, Cannonball, for doing that, making those requests. Overall, the number of visas has gone down and Scientology's portion has gone down, but they're still requesting. And also, the other thing he found was that most of their requests now are no longer for new people, but just renewals on the people they already have. So, again, an indication that even within Scientology, they're having a hard time getting new people. They're not only having a hard time getting new Americans to sign up, they're even getting a hard time getting new immigrants to come in, but they want to keep the ones that they have. So that's what they're doing.
Oh, of course they do. Do we have numbers connected with what that 10% is or what that 15% was? I'm just curious what
Yeah,
kind of,
so overall, it's about 18,000 R1 visas were requested, and Scientology's portion of that was 1,800.
oh my
So
God, that
yeah.
is so many. I mean, we're talking about a C organization that is maxed 5,000 people right now.
Oh, come on, it's more like
So, because it
30.
was 5,000 when I left, it wasn't even 5,000, right?
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's less, but at max, right? So the idea that I mean, wow,
I mean,
that's
yeah, could Scientology operate a Sea Org today if they weren't abusing the R1 visa program?
right.
Good question.
Totally valid question. I also wonder, remember years ago, and you've reported on this pretty extensively about the situation in Russia. As if this is where the bulk of these people are coming from, it's almost an exodus out of Russia for Scientologists. I'm wondering, I mean, I could even see them internally positioning this as some kind of underground railroad for Russian Scientologists or something within the Scientology world. What's the situation there now? Are there still Scientologists in jail over there, or do you know?
Scientology, I mean, Putin has definitely cracked down on Scientology and they can't have an org. They closed the org and all that. However, I think there's still people practicing it underground. But also, I think of the case of Katrina Reyes, where Katrina and her mom weren't really Scientologists. It's just that they were in Siberia and going to Florida sure sounded
Right.
like an upgrade to them. They didn't know what they were getting into. They just, their mom, Katrina's grandmother was working for Scientology in Moscow at the time and recommended that her daughter and her granddaughter go over there. And so they flew to Flag. Katrina says, I mean, she was like, what, 13 or 14 years old? She had no idea what she was getting into. So, on the one hand, you could say, yeah, maybe some of them are escaping some persecution in Russia. But I think mostly it's just, oh, go to America with a job? What a dream. And they have no idea they're going to become, indentured servants working for David Miscavige.
That's right. That's right. We are talking about a lot of numbers now because it makes even more sense what we were talking about months ago with the Clearwater Russian community, and they're really trying to make inroads into that community. So there's a little thing going on here. I mean, I'm just something to pay attention to with a number of data points on this. This is something to watch as far as future
Well,
Scientology.
we've seen it, Chris. We've
Yeah.
seen it that, traditionally L. Ron Hubbard had focused on English-speaking countries like the UK and in Australia and South Africa and of course the United
That's right.
States. And today you still have some, these aging older folks from those areas, but Scientology's, just not recruiting new people in those areas, and they're trying to find new avenues. And so you're seeing recruiting in Taiwan, you're seeing recruiting in Mexico, you're seeing recruiting in South America, so in Eastern Europe. I don't think they're even very healthy in those areas either, but they're at least getting some churn coming out of those places.
That's right. That's right. It's more like, 80s, 90s level Scientology in those regions. And I think it has to do with economic issues as well as cultural stuff. Let me throw one more thing out at you because you mentioned the obviously the current climate, the headline news. I mean, this is not us dredging this up. It's all out there, right? ICE is very, very busy these days. And yet, yeah, religious workers may not be on their target list. I have to wonder because we have an AG and a very, very friendly administration towards Scientology. Maybe I'm going to just throw out maybe this is one of those places where when we talk about them carving out exceptions for Scientology, this religious workers visa might be a way for them to. In other words, ICE isn't going to come raid Flag, right?
I would be surprised if they did.
I would too. I would be very surprised, and it would definitely change the calculus on this administration's attitude towards Scientology if they did that. But I don't. I see the exact opposite happening right now. Um, okay, so we also had another thing which is kind of connected administration-wise, which is pardons.
Huh.
Michelle Fiori. This is the third one. What are we looking at here?
I've been told by several people I shouldn't be surprised by this news, but I can't help it. I mean, Michelle Fiore's been such a funny, nutty story for so many years. She's this outspoken Nevada politician who first got on my radar years and years ago when I was at Raw Story, and we were looking at the fact that she was making claims that cancer was a fungus that could be flushed out with salt water, and that she's just this huge, gun fan. And there's this famous Christmas picture of her whole family. They've all got assault rifles, even the little kids. She was really, trying to make herself very visible as this far, far right kooky figure. And then she got involved in the whole Bundy standoff thing. She was a huge Trump fan. People started calling her Lady Trump. She made a wild video saying she was going to run for governor of Nevada, but then she decided to run for Secretary of State and lost. But then became a local judge. She's like a local judge in Nevada. And then she was arrested for some pretty interesting fraud charges. The claim was that she was telling people she was raising money to pay for a statue to a fallen law enforcement officer, a Las Vegas cop that had been killed in the line of duty, when actually a wealthy Republican donor had already agreed to pay for the statue. So she raised the money and then spent it on herself, spent it on her rent, her plastic surgery, her daughter's wedding, about 75 or $80,000 that people had given her thinking it was going to this statue. So, a pretty clear, easy to understand allegations of corruption, and she was convicted. It was a federal court. She was convicted, and she was awaiting sentencing, and it was looked like she was going to face some pretty serious prison time. But before her sentencing could occur, Trump pardoned her. And I guess I shouldn't be too shocked. She was a big supporter of his, and these days that's all it really takes. And but why do I still pay attention to her? Who cares what she thinks about cancer? Well, at one point I was leafing through a Free Winds magazine and I saw a picture of a woman swimming with the dolphins. When you go to the Free Winds, you can go on these excursions, and one of them is swimming with the dolphins. And I recognize this woman. I know this woman. And it dawned on me it was Michelle Fiori. And sure enough, during her trial, it's in the court record when they searched her house to, investigate this corruption, they found her FSSO receipts. Yes, she paid thousands of dollars to go to the Free Winds, and it wasn't just to swim with dolphins, right? I mean, you don't pay the FSSO unless you're there for some sort of course of some kind. So, no question, especially by Scientology standards, there's no question that Michelle Fiori is a Scientologist of some sort or another. Yeah, she did give speeches at the org. She disseminated truth about drugs, or CCHR propaganda. So, she still has never said anything about it. And I'm curious to see what she's going to do now. Is she going to run for office again now that she's no longer facing prison time? Is she going to, I assume she's going to be as outspoken as ever. But you can't take that court record away. There's no question. She paid to go to the Free Winds. I would like to hear her say something about her Scientology involvement, but I have a feeling she never will say anything about it. What do you think, Chris?
I think you're absolutely right. And she won't have, because there's no reason for her to. And she's one of these people who's just going to flip the bird, and there you go. I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and I'm going to put out what I'm going to put out. She is outrageous, this woman.
Yeah,
She's
she's
really like
outrageous.
one of those larger than life kind of people. So
She,
these are the kind of folks who kind of get away with this stuff by just laughing at you and moving on.
oh, it's specifically, I mean, she's attributing this to God, and when one of the reporters there in town asked her for a comment, she said to this woman reporter, Katie or whatever her name is, you don't get down on your knees enough. This is where this comes from, is getting on your knees to God. Anyway,
Yeah.
so Chris, when I got the news, I sat down to write the headline. Michelle Fiore is the first Scientologist pardoned by Trump. But then I suddenly remembered that's not true. There were at least two January 6 defendants who were convicted and were sentenced to. There were a couple in Dunedin. The guy is a professional poker player, and the woman is a TV chef. And they're OT7s at least. They probably are OT8s. And yeah, they were in the Capitol on January 6th and got inside the Capitol. And so they had like some jail time that was, I don't know if they had to serve any beyond what they're jail, when they're in custody. Um, a fine and stuff like that. It wasn't major or anything, but yeah, they were among the 15 or 1600 people who were pardoned by the president. So three Scientologists that we know of have received pardons from President Trump. I don't think that's related to these other issues we've been looking about. The fact that Trish Duggan is on the board at Kennedy Center, and what's his
Agreed.
name? The Greta Van Susteren's husband, John P. Cole, is
Right.
an envoy of the whole
Ukraine.
Ukraine thing.
Yeah.
And that Pam Bondi is so tight with Scientology. That I think that's probably a separate story.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to me. I'm keeping score. Three Scientologists have been pardoned by Trump so far.
Yeah, hey, it's something to watch for because this is also one of the reasons why we would see the church politically on the side of Trumpism, which they already were. So and we already know numbers wise that's where they lean. Okay, Elizabeth Moss. You had not only a story on this, but a video you did. What was the deal with her
Well,
this week?
Chris, I've been complaining that Scientology was taking so long to put out its slideshow for the LRH birthday, which took place way back on March 15th.
Yeah.
And I just I love these slideshows. We get to see who goes to these things and that kind of thing. And I had never seen Elizabeth Moss at any event ever. She obviously grew up in Scientology. There's been, but people always like to hope that maybe she's not really involved. She kind of grew up, but it's just sort of in her background. So last year, there she was, front row at the LRH birthday, very pregnant, giving a standing ovation to David Miscavige, standing next to John Travolta. And I've had some readers ask me, why do you always point out the fact that she's pregnant? Well, let me tell you something. She looked like she was about 8 months pregnant. Women who are 8 months pregnant will tell you they don't want to go to an arena and stand in the front row and give some guy standing ovations. Are you kidding me? I'm just saying that took a lot of effort on her part. That could not have been comfortable. So
That's a good point.
that just shows you what an effort she made a year ago. So this year, the slideshow comes out, and once again, Elizabeth Moss, front row, Michael Pena, front row, giving David Miscavige a standing ovation. So I think it's a big deal.
I do too.
I had asked Mike Rinder about why she would be standing next to John Travolta, and he told me that he thought it looked like, remember 25 years ago, this is what they were doing with Tom Cruise. They were trying to spin him up, get him more involved, get him more dedicated, and that's when he gave him his Freedom Medal of Valor, and then they sent him out, and he had his disastrous interview with Matt Lauer and some other interviews. But that's what they were trying to do with Tom Cruise 20 years ago, and now it looks like maybe they're using Travolta to kind of guide her into this idea that, look, you need to step up the visibility. I mean, I don't know that they intended us to see these pictures, but the people that were there, I'm sure it was a big deal to them to see Elizabeth Moss in the front row, and now for the second year in a row. I mean,
Absolutely.
wouldn't that mean a lot to an individual Scientologist to see her standing in the front row giving Dave a standing ovation?
There are very few things, let me tell you, is right from the inside. There are very few things that are watched as closely by public Scientologists as the celebrities and the celebrity visibility and the celebrity showing up. This is huge inside Scientology because celebrities are VIPs and they're opinion leaders and they're big names and they have hit shows and people listen to them. So Scientologists think. I don't think anybody's really listening to Elizabeth Moss, but she's not really out there saying a whole lot either. She's a pretty private person. But visibility, it matters, and Michael Pena as well. And these are people that we have specifically called out over the years as not showing up, as not being around, as not saying anything. So now, hey guys, are you gonna what are we doing here, right? So they're probably pushing them a little bit to show up. Could also be that they are moving on up the bridge and becoming more and more deeper level Scientologists for all we know, right? I mean, you hit that clear point. It's a little bit of a point of no return, especially for celebrities. So it could just be that too as time moves forward. We'll have to see. I don't know. Are they even producing those celebrity mags anymore where they interview the celebrities?
They started up again, and
Okay.
I got a new one. It wasn't very interesting at all. There was
Yeah.
nobody. I mean, they're just like at D-level celebrities now. There's nobody
All
very
right.
good in there.
If
So,
we see them in the celebrity mags showing up, that'll be huge internally.
okay.
I'm just saying
All right.
that's a marker for you, right?
Okay.
Is that celebrity mag? At least it was when I was in. We always watched it. The advanced mag and the celebrity mags. Those were the two everybody was interested in internally. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now we also we have court hearings, reportings on Minkoff and otherwise. What was the deal on this?
Yeah, I really want to thank Mark Bunker. He went to the courthouse on, I think it was Thursday, and we had both checked the docket the night before and that morning. We had both seen that it was, as far as we knew, it was still scheduled for Thursday, and he got to the court, and the hearing had been canceled. I only saw it only showed up in the docket like 2 days later. Doesn't say anything about continued to another date or anything, just says canceled. So I don't know what that's about. We're talking about the Whitney Mills death lawsuit.
Yeah.
Whitney's mother, Layla Mills, is suing the Church of Scientology and Dr. David Minkoff for contributing to the reasons that she killed herself in May 2022. And last month, Minkoff's attorney had tried to get him out of the lawsuit by claiming that Ms. Mills had not consulted the right kinds of doctors who are experts in the case, and the judge denied that. So what was supposed to happen this past week was Minkoff's attorney had filed a motion to dismiss, just in general, why he thought that the doctor should be let out of the lawsuit. They didn't hold that hearing. That's interesting. Now, it's been suggested to me that possibly the two sides have told the judge they're in settlement negotiations. And I can tell you, a judge would say, "Okay, go ahead, take all your time you want."
Yeah,
All the judge wants is it off of his calendar.
right.
So that might be happening after losing that first motion decisively, the way that Minkoff did. They may realize that they need to figure out a number with this woman. I just want to say, if Layla Mills finds a way to settle with Dr. David Minkoff and gets some money and goes away, I'm happy for her. I don't. This is not somebody who is trying to, expose the Church of Scientology for anybody else. She lost a daughter. She deserves to be, get some compensation for what they did to her, and I hope that she gets it. So I
Yep,
just want to prepare people. Don't be disappointed if this case goes away after they settle, because that means she got something.
that's
But
right.
it's been really interesting to see some of the stuff come to light. In particular, in that lawsuit, are these text messages that Minkoff
Oh,
sent are just so outrageous. So I think they know they can't get this in front of a jury. There's no way you can show those texts to a jury. It's over. So they've just got to find a way to work things out with her, and that's probably what they're doing right now.
that is definitely the Occam's razor answer here for what's going on, and it makes sense, right? It's the simplest answer. Um, I could not say anything except I agree completely. Taking on Scientology legally, I was just talking about it today in my Q&A show. It's the single hardest thing you can do when it comes to fighting a group like Scientology, because as Masterson's victims know, as Wallersheim knows, as so many other people know, they are ruthless. They just don't let up, the fair gaming and everything else. And I really would hate to see Whitney Mill's mother have to suffer through stuff like that. So
And they've already, I
agreed.
mean, he indicated that in court. I mean, she's already put herself through deposition. I don't know if it was technically a deposition, but she did answer questions from the Minkoff side, and her attorney said it was devastating for her. So
Yeah,
she's already had to go through some of that and pain, some of that pain. So I hope it goes her way soon.
exactly. Because in a civil case, that's the best you can hope for. Remember, nobody's going to jail on this. Nobody's getting fired over this. There's not going to be some mass exposure. This is a wrongful death suit. Let's get it settled. Yeah. Okay. Now, oh man, I almost fell out of my chair. This guy just keeps coming back with more and more. LRH 2.0. This time with something I didn't even see coming. I thought I knew where this guy was at. What what do we got now?
Well, this guy is Justin Craig. He's an ex-con from California. He spent time in prison for various things, including violent crimes. He showed up in the Pacific Northwest about 7 or 8 years ago and convinced some independent Scientologists that he is the reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard. He subsequent to that got in more legal trouble. He's since October 2021, almost 4 years now. He's been sitting in a county jail in Tennessee, awaiting trial on some pretty serious violent charges. But while he's sitting in jail, he's still running this little empire of what he calls Asperianism, or he also calls expedited Scientology. And he's got these, indie Scientologists. These are people that practice Scientology outside of the church, convinced that he is the second coming of L. Ron Hubbard, and they send him money every month. And he sends out these proclamations. He's got various helpers. He's got an iPad in his jail cell. He sends out these proclamations, and they make their way to me, and I get them every once in a while. I'm not gonna put them all up, but this one I couldn't resist. I mean, he is now calling for a new Sea Org in his organization.
Calling it same thing. C organization. I mean, full on from prison. Oh, and by the way, nothing changes. You don't have to get into a uniform. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to upend everything. It's just dedication and support. Support.
Just sign those
Send your
contracts
support.
and get the money coming.
That's
Yeah.
right. Get that money along with your signed contract.
Oh, wow.
You just can't help but laugh at stuff like this. There have been nothing less than 500 offshoots of Scientology since 1950, just so y'all know. This nothing new. People have been conning off this con for a long, long time, right? Even the likes of Werner Erhard. So Justin Craig is just it's just kind of
He's
buffoonery,
just one
but
of the
it's
more
so
colorful, creative ones, and it's just
oh, he
amazing
really
that
is.
anybody thinks he's the reincarnated L. Ron Hubbard. But
Well,
I don't think there's a lot, but they do exist, and they are sending him money, and it's just amazing.
it really is. It really is. Okay, now on to something truly amazing. Let's go ahead and wrap up this week by sharing some thoughts about Mike's memorial that we went to last weekend. I had a lot to say. I will summarize here by simply saying it was an absolutely beautiful service on a beautiful venue. The location it was just picturesque. It was perfect. It was peaceful, and the service and the memories that were shared were heartfelt and very, very touching. And it took a lot to get there, and I am very, very, very glad I went. I would regret it for the rest of my life if I hadn't been there. So it was a beautiful send off for Mike. In a way, a lot of us got to say goodbye in a community setting where a lot of us hadn't seen each other in a long time. You and I had not even been physically together since 2017. I mean, it's been a while, and so everybody in the room together. It was nothing but goodwill. There was nothing else going on there. I was floored by the entire experience, and that's my takeaway. Tony, what were your thoughts?
Well, I said on the little piece I wrote, they when you and I were sitting up pretty close at the front there, and when I got a little program, I could see who was going to be speaking. I started thinking about, hey, I got to report this. We've both been pretty quiet about it leading up to it because I didn't want, the people who invited us to feel like we were, speaking out of school or anything. But once we're sitting there and it's happening, the reporter in me kicked in and said, "Look, I have to write something about this happening." And so I started asking the people, who were kind of in charge, "Can I take pictures?" And they're like, "No, no pictures, no pictures." So, okay, that's cool. And so I decided that I would just take a picture of Mike's portrait and describe it a little bit. And I just said it was a who's who of former Scientologists. I mean, it was an incredible group of people. Like you said, some people hadn't seen each other for years and years, decades.
Yeah.
Some people that I've been talking to for many years that I'd never met before in the flesh. That was great. Some people I hadn't seen in a long time. It was wonderful. And everybody was just, I think it was, we were all very sad that Mike was gone, but it was also feeling really good about what he had done while he was living and that it was
That's
being
right.
honored. Pastor Willie Rice really surprised me with how good his eulogy was. I just thought it was fantastic. And so I went up to him afterwards and asked, "Is it okay with you guys?" And I asked Amy Scobie and Christy Colbrand because I kind of felt like I'm not going to say who was there. I'll let other people, share their photos. But if for my news story, I'm not going to, since it was a private ceremony, I'm not going to say who was there, and I'm not going to. I thought that all the other people who spoke, it was way too intensely personal. But the Pastor Rice, it was more of a generalized thing. It was fantastic. And he acknowledged the fact that some of us in the crowd and Mike himself weren't exactly in the same religious tradition as he is. So, but
Yeah.
I thought he was real magnanimous that way.
Yep.
And just a real, so I asked him, he said, "Yeah, go ahead." So that's what I published. I heard from a lot of readers that really liked that. They felt that it was really well done. So yeah, it was a great experience and wonderful seeing these folks. And yeah, I think just a perfect send off for such a great figure as Mike Rinder.
Absolutely. Pastor Rice's eulogy was just brilliant and so So wonderful for Mike. And the other ones, yes, very, very personalized. People I'd never met or even knew anything about, sharing their experience of Mike. And yeah, we're never going to forget that guy. He was amongst the best of us. I will say that. Okay. So we're going to wrap up the show for this week, guys. Thanks very much for coming around and watching us blabber on about this stuff. Tony, do you have any kind of preview for us for what might be coming up this week?
Well, you know what Friday is, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
75 years, Dianetics.
That's right.
So I've got a few things coming up this week, and it's turning out to be pretty fun. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna pay attention to that. Dave definitely is, and we got some stuff on that. So we'll have fun with that.
Awesome. Okay, folks. Well, you heard it here. So get on Tony's Substack, get your subscription to that, get your daily notifications, right? And check back on with us on Mondays for the wrap up. All right. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.